Hey guys. Tonight, we're going back to a time when silence spoke louder than bullets, and survival meant blending in until you disappeared completely. If you enjoy this kind of thing, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you're listening from somewhere around the world, drop a comment letting me know where you are and what time it is. I always love hearing from you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum, and let's drift back in time. You wake at 4:47 in the morning. Not because of an alarm. Your body has learned to wake before dawn, before the city stirs, before anyone might be watching your windows. The small apartment is cold. It's always cold. The radiator beneath the single window rattles but gives little warmth, and you've learned not to adjust it. Adjusting things leaves traces, leaves patterns. You lie still for 3 minutes, listening. The building settles around you with familiar creaks. Mrs. Kozlov in the apartment below coughs. The same dry cough she's had for months. A pipe gurgles somewhere in the walls. Traffic is still hours away. This is your time. The only time you can be certain you're alone. You sit up slowly, bare feet touching the cold linoleum floor. The apartment is sparse. A bed, a small table, 2 chairs, a kitchenette barely large enough for one person. No photographs, no personal items, nothing that might suggest a life beyond this place, this moment. The walls are painted the same dull green as every other apartment in this building, in this district. You are invisible here, just another tenant in just another Soviet housing block. You move to the window and peer through the thin curtain. The street below is empty except for a stray dog picking through garbage. You count the windows across the street, noting which ones show light, which ones remain dark. 3rd floor, 2nd window from the left, still dark. The old man who lives there usually has his light on by 5. You make a mental note. Everything gets noted, everything gets remembered. Your clothes hang on a single hook beside the door. Gray trousers, gray shirt, a brown jacket that's seen better years. You dress slowly, methodically. Each button, each sleeve, each fold of fabric done the same way every morning. Routine is camouflage. Routine is survival. In the kitchenette, you prepare instant coffee with lukewarm water from the tap. The coffee tastes like dust and disappointment, but it's warm. You drink it standing at the small window, watching the sky lighten from black to deep gray. Winter in Prague is eternal. Winter in Prague is perfect for disappearing. You check your watch. 5:15. Time to begin the day's work. From beneath the loose floorboard near the bed, you retrieve a small leather journal. The pages are filled with what appears to be poetry, written in Czech. Terrible poetry about autumn leaves and lost love. But between the lines, invisible to anyone who might find it, are notes written in special ink. Names, dates, locations. The real work. You heat a small metal spoon over the gas burner and hold it near the page. Letters appear, faint and brown, between the lines of verse. Today's schedule materializes like a photograph in Developer. Café Slavia, 11:30. Red scarf, table near the window. Signal received, asset productive. Continue surveillance of target. You memorize the information, then watch it fade as the page cools. The spoon goes back in the drawer. The journal goes back under the floorboard. You straighten the thin rug, ensuring it lies exactly as it did before. At 6 o'clock, you leave the apartment. The hallway smells of boiled cabbage and old cigarettes. You lock the door with 2 keys, the main lock and the deadbolt you installed yourself. Your footsteps echo in the stairwell as you descend 4 flights to the lobby. The elevator hasn't worked in months, but that's better. Elevators are traps. Elevators are places where you can't run. Outside, the morning air cuts through your jacket. You walk north toward the city center, taking the route you've memorized. Past the butcher shop with its empty windows, past the newsstand where the old woman sells Rue de Pravo and Prace. You buy a newspaper. The same one every day, paying with exact change. The woman nods but doesn't speak. She never speaks. You walk for 20 minutes, checking reflections in shop windows, noting faces, watching for patterns. A man in a black coat walks the same direction for 3 blocks, then turns left. A woman with a blue hat crosses the street twice. Normal behavior. Random behavior. The kind of chaos that means you're still invisible. At the park, you sit on the same bench you've sat on for 6 months. You open the newspaper and read about factory production quotas and agricultural achievements. The words blur together, meaningless. Your real attention is on the path that leads past the pond. At 7:15, a jogger will pass. Gray sweatsuit, red running shoes. If everything is normal, he'll carry a small gym bag. If there's danger, the bag will be gone. 7:15 arrives. The jogger approaches. Gray sweatsuit, red running shoes, small gym bag. You fold the newspaper and continue walking. The day proceeds as planned. Your cover identity is Pavel Novák, a clerk in the Ministry of Agriculture. You have an office on the 3rd floor of a gray building near Wenceslas Square. You arrive at 8:30, same as always. The security guard nods as you show your identification. Your desk is clean, organized, unremarkable. You spend the morning typing reports about grain distribution and livestock quotas. The work is real. It has to be real. The numbers matter to someone, somewhere in the bureaucracy. But between the reports, you watch. The office has 12 desks, 11 other clerks. You know their names, their habits, their weaknesses. Jindrik drinks too much and complains about his wife. Marie supports her elderly mother and needs the job. František asks too many questions about everyone else's work. You file these details away, never knowing when they might be useful. At 10:45, you excuse yourself to use the bathroom. Instead, you walk to the filing room on the 2nd floor. Your fingers move quickly through folders marked with incomprehensible codes. You find the file you need, production reports from a factory in Brno. The factory that, according to your handler, produces more than agricultural equipment. You photograph 3 pages with a camera no bigger than a matchbox, then return the file to its exact position. Back at your desk, you type another report. Your fingers move steadily across the keys, creating the rhythm of productivity. Around you, the office hums with the sound of work, typewriters, telephones, quiet conversations about weekend plans. You are part of this sound, invisible within it. At 11:20, you take your lunch break. The walk to Café Slavia takes exactly 8 minutes. You time it precisely, arriving at 11:30. The cafe is warm, filled with the smell of coffee and cigarette smoke. Students from the university sit at small tables, discussing books and politics in hushed tones. Old men play chess in the corner. Everything is normal. You order coffee and a pastry, then find a table near the window. You wear no red scarf. That detail was misinformation, a test to see if anyone else is reading your coded messages. You open a book of Czech poetry and pretend to read while watching the street outside. At 11:45, she arrives. Elena Svoboda, mid-30s, works as a translator for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She sits 3 tables away, ordering tea and a sandwich. You don't look at her directly. You don't acknowledge her presence. But when she opens her purse to pay, you see her place a small envelope beside her napkin. When she leaves 10 minutes later, the envelope remains. You finish your coffee slowly, savoring the warmth. The book of poetry lies open to a page about winter and loneliness. The words seem appropriate. At 12:15, you stand to leave. Your hand brushes the empty table as you pass, and the envelope disappears into your coat pocket. Outside, the afternoon is gray and cold. You walk back toward your office, taking a different route. The envelope in your pocket feels heavy, though it weighs almost nothing. Information is always heavy. Information is always dangerous. You don't open the envelope. Not yet. That will wait until tonight, in the safety of your apartment, with the door locked and the curtains drawn. For now, you return to your desk, to your reports, to the careful performance of being Pavel Novák, agricultural clerk, unremarkable citizen of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. The afternoon passes slowly. You type reports, answer telephone calls, attend a meeting about crop rotation schedules. Your supervisor, Mr. Dvorak, praises your attention to detail. Your colleagues invite you for drinks after work. You politely decline, as always. Pavel Novák doesn't drink with colleagues. Pavel Novák goes home to his small apartment and reads alone. At 5 o'clock, you leave the office. The evening air is colder now, carrying the promise of snow. You walk home through streets that grow busier as workers end their shifts. Trams rattle past, filled with tired faces. You board the number 12 tram, taking a seat near the back. The journey home takes 20 minutes, and you spend them watching other passengers, memorizing faces, noting who gets on and off at each stop. Your apartment building comes into view as the tram rounds the corner. You pull the cord to signal your stop, then step off into the evening darkness. The building's entrance is lit by a single bulb that flickers occasionally. You climb the 4 flights of stairs, key ready before you reach your door. Inside, you go through the ritual of checking for intrusion. The thin thread you left stretched across the doorframe is intact. The dust patterns on the windowsill are undisturbed. The books on your shelf remain in their exact positions. You are alone. You are safe. For now, you prepare a simple dinner: bread, cheese, a can of soup heated on the gas burner. You eat standing at the small table, looking out at the street below. A few people walk past, bundled in heavy coats. The old man in the building across the street has his light on now. Everything appears normal. After dinner, you retrieve the envelope from your coat pocket. Your hands are steady as you open it, though your heart beats faster. Inside, a single sheet of paper with typed text. A meeting schedule for next week. Names of attendees. One name circled in red ink. You read the information 3 times, committing it to memory. Then you hold the paper over the gas burner and watch it burn. The ashes go down the sink, washed away with water. The envelope follows, torn into small pieces and flushed down the toilet. You sit in the single chair by the window, looking out at the street. A cat picks its way carefully along the sidewalk, disappearing into shadows. Somewhere in the building, a radio plays softly, classical music, Dvorak's Symphony No. 9. The music is beautiful and melancholy, fitting for this cold evening in this cold city. You think about home, though you try not to. Home is a place you can't return to, not while this work continues. Home is a place that exists only in memory now, like the information that burned in your sink. Everything burns eventually. Everything disappears. At 10 o'clock, you prepare for bed. You wash your face in cold water. Brush your teeth with a toothbrush that's beginning to fray. Your reflection in the small mirror looks tired, older than your years. This work ages you quickly, carving lines around your eyes, adding gray to your hair. You are becoming Pavel Novák, losing yourself in the performance. You lie in bed listening to the sounds of the building settling for the night. Mrs. Kozlov's cough has quieted. The pipes have stopped gurgling. Tomorrow will bring another day of careful routine, another day of invisible work. You close your eyes and wait for sleep, knowing that even in dreams, you must be careful not to speak in English. You wake at 4:47 again. The routine never changes. The same cold floor, the same weak light filtering through the curtains, the same careful listening before you move. This is your 4th day in Prague this week, though it feels like your 400th. Time moves differently when you're living someone else's life. Today is different, though. Today you have a meeting. You dress with extra care, choosing the brown jacket instead of the gray one. Small changes matter. Patterns kill operatives. You drink your dust coffee standing at the window, watching the street wake up. The dog is back, still picking through garbage. Some routines are universal. The morning ritual with the journal reveals new information. Contact confirmed. Package ready. Strelicky Island, 2 p.m. Bench facing the river. Come alone. Always come alone. The invisible words fade as the page cools, leaving only bad poetry about autumn leaves. You leave the apartment at 6:15, 15 minutes later than usual. The hallway still smells of cabbage and cigarettes. The elevator still doesn't work. But today you take the stairs slower, listening for footsteps above or below. The building is quiet except for the sound of your own breathing. Outside, the morning is overcast and cold. You walk a different route today, heading east toward the river before turning north. The detour adds 10 minutes to your journey but lets you check for surveillance. You stop at a different newsstand, buying a different paper from a different vendor. The old woman who usually sells you Rude Pravo will notice, but that's intentional. Patterns must be broken regularly. At the office, you settle into your desk and begin typing reports. But today the work feels different. Today you're not just playing Pavel Novák, you're using him. The Ministry of Agriculture has files you need, connections you can exploit. Your fingers move across the typewriter keys, creating reports that contain coded information. To anyone reading them, they're dry analyses of grain production. To the right person, they're intelligence reports about military installations disguised as agricultural facilities. At 10:30, you volunteer to deliver a report to the Ministry of Defense. The building is only 6 blocks away, and the walk gives you another chance to check for surveillance. You carry a manila envelope containing grain production statistics and a hidden compartment holding microfilm. The weight of the envelope feels normal, but the weight of its contents presses down on your chest. The Defense Ministry building is gray stone and suspicious eyes. You show your identification to 3 different guards, each one examining your papers with the thoroughness of men who know what happens when they make mistakes. Your cover story is solid. Pavel Novák has every reason to be here, delivering routine reports about agricultural supplies for military bases. On the 3rd floor, you deliver your envelope to a clerk who barely looks up from his work. But while he's signing the receipt, you photograph the document on his desk with the Matchbox camera. It's a shipping manifest for a facility in the Bohemian countryside. The kind of facility that doesn't officially exist. You return to your own office and spend the rest of the morning typing more reports. Your supervisor compliments your productivity. Your colleagues discuss weekend plans. Everything is normal, except for the microfilm now hidden in your shoe and the photographs in your jacket pocket. At 1:30, you leave for lunch. But instead of heading to your usual cafe, you walk toward the river. The afternoon is gray and cold, with the promise of snow in the heavy clouds. You cross the Charles Bridge, moving with the crowd of tourists and locals. Street musicians play for coins. Artists sketch portraits of anyone willing to pay. You are just another face in the crowd, invisible and forgettable. Strelicky Island is a small park in the middle of the Vltava River. You reach it by crossing a narrow bridge crowded with bare trees and empty benches. In summer, this place would be full of couples and families. In winter, it's nearly deserted. Perfect for clandestine meetings. You find the bench facing the river and sit down. The water is dark and fast-moving, carrying debris from upstream. A few ducks paddle near the shore, looking for food. You open a book and pretend to read while watching the approaches to the island. Anyone coming to meet you will be visible from a distance. At 2 o'clock exactly, a woman approaches. She's middle-aged, wearing a blue coat and carrying a shopping bag. She sits on the other end of the bench and begins feeding breadcrumbs to the ducks. You don't look at her directly, but you notice her hands are steady despite the cold. You both sit in silence for several minutes. The only sounds are the river lapping against the shore and the soft splashing of ducks. Then, without turning toward you, she speaks in accented English. The words are coded, seemingly innocent. She's asking about the weather, complaining about the cold winter. But embedded in her casual conversation are responses to questions you never asked aloud. The package is ready. The extraction route is confirmed. The timeline has been moved up. You respond in the same coded language, discussing the possibility of snow and the need for warmer clothes. But your real message is clear. The information has been gathered, the photographs taken, the mission nearly complete. One more week, perhaps 2, and Pavel Novák can disappear forever. She stands after 10 minutes, scattering the last of her breadcrumbs. As she walks away, she leaves the empty shopping bag on the bench. You wait another 5 minutes, then pick up the bag and continue your walk around the island. Inside the bag, hidden beneath a folded newspaper, is a small package wrapped in brown paper. You complete a full circuit of the island before leaving. The package goes into your coat pocket, next to the photographs from the morning. You feel like a walking intelligence depot, carrying enough secrets to start or end careers. The weight of it makes your steps heavier as you walk back across the bridge. The afternoon at the office passes slowly. You type reports, answer phone calls, attend another meeting about crop rotation. But your mind is elsewhere, running through extraction procedures and backup plans. The package in your pocket feels like it's burning through the fabric. At 5 o'clock, you leave the office and walk to the main post office. Inside, you rent a small postal box using identification for a different cover identity. The package goes into the box, along with the photographs from the morning. Tomorrow, someone will collect them. By next week, the information will be analyzed by specialists in Langley, Virginia. The intelligence will be acted upon, or filed away, or forgotten. You'll never know which. You return to your apartment as darkness falls. The building is quiet except for the usual sounds, Mrs. Kozlov's cough, the gurgling pipes, the distant sound of a television playing too loudly. You climb the 4 flights of stairs, checking for the telltale signs of intrusion. The thread is intact. The dust patterns are undisturbed. You are alone. Dinner is the same as always, bread, cheese, soup from a can. You eat standing at the window, watching the street below. The old man across the street has his light on. A cat crosses the sidewalk, disappearing into an alley. Everything appears normal, but you know that normal is an illusion. Normal is a performance you give every day. After dinner, you sit in the chair by the window and think about the meeting on the island. The woman's steady hands, her coded words, the weight of the package she left behind. You wonder who she is, what her real name might be, whether she'll survive long enough to complete her own mission. In this business, you rarely know the people you work with, and you never know their fates. You think about the photographs hidden in the postal box, the information that will soon cross an ocean. Military installations disguised as farms. Shipping manifests for facilities that don't exist. The kind of intelligence that might prevent a war, or start one. You're just a courier, a small part of a vast machine, but the weight of responsibility feels enormous. At 10 o'clock, you prepare for bed. You wash your face in cold water, brush your teeth, look at your reflection in the small mirror. The face looking back is Pavel Novák's face now, aged by months of careful performance. You wonder if your real face is still there, somewhere beneath the mask, or if it's been lost forever. You lie in bed listening to the building settle for the night. Tomorrow will bring another day of routine, another day of invisible work. But tonight, you allow yourself to think about home. About a place where you don't have to check for surveillance, where you can speak in your own language, where you can be yourself without fear. The thought is painful and comforting at the same time. You close your eyes and wait for sleep, knowing that even in dreams, you must be careful. Even in dreams, you are Pavel Novák, agricultural clerk, unremarkable citizen of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. Even in dreams, you are someone else. The third day begins like all the others. 4:47 in the morning, cold floor, weak light, careful listening. But today there's something different in the air. A tension that makes your skin prickle, a sense that the routine is about to be broken. You dress more carefully than usual, choosing clothes that will blend into crowds, shoes that won't slip on wet pavement. The morning ritual with the journal reveals disturbing information. Surveillance increased. Package compromised. Possible extraction needed. Maintain cover. Wait for signal. The invisible words fade, leaving only bad poetry, but the message burns in your mind. Someone is watching. Someone knows. The careful work of months might be unraveling. You leave the apartment at 6 o'clock, taking the route you've walked hundreds of times. But today you pay attention to everything, every face, every footstep, every car parked on the street. The newsstand vendor nods as you buy your paper, but her eyes seem to linger on your face a moment too long. The old woman who usually ignores you watches as you walk past. At the office, you settle into your desk and begin typing reports, but your fingers feel clumsy on the keys. The routine work that usually provides comfort now feels like torture. Each minute stretches into an hour. Each hour feels like a day. At 10:15, you notice him. A man in a gray suit, sitting in the lobby, reading a newspaper. He wasn't there yesterday. He wasn't there the day before. But today he's there, and his eyes follow you as you walk to the elevator. The elevator that doesn't work, that you never use, that forces you to take the stairs past his position. You spend the morning typing reports about grain production, but your mind is running through escape routes. The building has 4 exits. The main entrance is watched. The loading dock is usually empty. The fire escape leads to an alley that connects to 3 different streets. You memorize every detail, every possibility. At lunch, you don't go to your usual cafe. Instead, you walk to a small restaurant near the university, taking a circuitous route that doubles back on itself twice. The man in the gray suit doesn't follow, but that doesn't mean you're not being watched. Surveillance teams work in shifts, hand off targets without the target ever knowing. The restaurant is crowded with students and professors. You order soup and bread, sitting at a table where you can watch the entrance. The soup is thin and tasteless, but it's warm. The bread is hard but filling. You eat slowly, watching faces, listening to conversations, waiting for some sign that you're safe or that you're not. A student at the next table is reading a book of English poetry. The sight of it makes your chest tighten. You haven't read English words in months, haven't spoken your native language except in coded phrases. The language of Shakespeare and Whitman has become foreign to you, dangerous to even think about. After lunch, you walk back to the office through streets that seem different now. The buildings look more imposing, the faces more suspicious. Every police officer might be looking for you. Every civilian might be an informant. The paranoia that's been your constant companion for months is becoming overwhelming. At the office, the man in the gray suit is gone. But that doesn't bring relief. It brings more questions. Where did he go? Who was he watching? Was he even watching you, or is your paranoia making you see threats that don't exist? You spend the afternoon typing reports, but the words blur together. Your supervisor stops by your desk to discuss a project, and you have to ask him to repeat himself twice. Your colleagues notice your distraction, make jokes about you being in love or sick. You smile and play along, but inside you're calculating distances and timing escape routes. At 5 o'clock, you leave the office and walk toward home. But instead of taking your usual route, you take a path that leads through the city center, past shops and cafes, through crowds that provide cover. You stop at a bookstore and pretend to browse while watching the street outside. You buy a book you don't need, paying with money you shouldn't spend. The book is a collection of Czech short stories. You tuck it under your arm and continue walking, taking random turns, doubling back, using every technique you've learned for losing surveillance. By the time you reach your apartment building, you're reasonably sure you're alone. But reasonably sure isn't enough. Not anymore. You climb the 4 flights of stairs, checking for the telltale signs of intrusion. The thread is intact. The dust patterns are undisturbed. But something feels wrong. The air smells different. The silence feels heavier. You enter the apartment and lock both locks behind you. The evening ritual begins. Checking windows, examining the floorboards, looking for signs that someone has been here. Everything appears normal, but the feeling of wrongness persists. You prepare dinner mechanically, bread, cheese, soup from a can. But you eat standing at the window, watching the street below with new intensity. Every shadow might hide a watcher. Every parked car might contain surveillance equipment. The old man across the street has his light on, as always, but tonight it seems like a signal. After dinner, you sit in the chair by the window and think about the man in the gray suit. Was he watching you, or was he just a clerk from another ministry, waiting for an appointment? In this business, paranoia is survival, but it's also madness. The line between healthy caution and destructive fear is thinner than the thread you stretch across your doorframe. You think about the message in the journal this morning. Surveillance increased. Package compromised. The woman on the island, the shopping bag she left behind, the postal box where you left the photographs. Any part of the chain could be compromised. Any part could lead back to you. You consider your options. You could continue the mission, maintain your cover, hope that the increased surveillance is routine. You could activate the extraction procedure, disappear into the network of safe houses and false identities. You could run, tonight, abandoning everything and everyone. But running means admitting defeat. Running means that months of careful work have been wasted. Running means that Pavel Novák disappears and someone else takes his place, someone who might not be as careful, someone who might not survive. You sit in the chair by the window until late into the night, watching the street, thinking about choices and consequences. The cat appears again, picking its way carefully along the sidewalk. You envy its freedom, its ability to disappear into shadows without leaving a trace. At 11 o'clock, you prepare for bed. You wash your face in cold water, brush your teeth, look at your reflection in the small mirror. The face looking back is tired, older, marked by stress and sleepless nights. You wonder how much longer you can maintain this performance, how much longer Pavel Novák can exist. You lie in bed listening to the sounds of the building, but tonight every sound seems amplified. Mrs. Kozlov's cough sounds like a signal. The gurgling pipes sound like footsteps. The distant television sounds like radio communications. You close your eyes and try to sleep, but sleep doesn't come easily. You lie awake thinking about the man in the gray suit, about surveillance teams and extraction procedures, about the thin line between paranoia and survival. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new dangers, new decisions. Tonight, you wait in the darkness and listen to the city breathing around you. The clock on the bedside table ticks away the minutes. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Finally, Exhaustion overcomes anxiety, and you drift into an uneasy sleep. Even in dreams, you are Pavel Novák, agricultural clerk, unremarkable citizen of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. Even in dreams, you are someone else. The fourth day begins differently. You wake at 4:47, as always, but something has changed during the night. The air feels charged, dangerous. The silence feels like the moment before a storm breaks. You dress quickly, choosing the darkest clothes you own. The morning ritual with the journal reveals a single word, written in larger letters than usual. Go. The message is clear. The extraction is happening. Tonight, tomorrow, soon. Pavel Novák's time is ending. You don't eat breakfast. Instead, you begin the process of erasing yourself. The journal goes into the sink, dissolved with chemicals hidden in a shaving cream tube. The loose floorboard is secured, the hiding place eliminated. You pack a small bag with essentials. Money in 3 different currencies, identification papers for 2 different identities, a change of clothes, nothing more. The apartment that has been your home for months must become anonymous again. You wipe down surfaces, remove any trace of fingerprints or DNA. The few personal items you allowed yourself, the books, the spare clothes, the small radio, are arranged to suggest that Pavel Novák simply went to work one day and never came back. It happens in this city. People disappear. You leave the apartment at 6 o'clock, carrying only the small bag and the clothes on your back. The hallway smells of cabbage and cigarettes, as always. The elevator still doesn't work. But today you take the stairs knowing you'll never climb them again. Outside, the morning is cold and overcast. You walk toward the city center, but not toward your office. Pavel Novák won't be going to work today. Pavel Novák won't be typing reports about grain production or attending meetings about crop rotation. Pavel Novák is beginning to disappear. You walk for an hour, taking a route that winds through the oldest parts of the city. Past Gothic churches and medieval squares, through narrow streets that have seen centuries of occupations and liberations. You are just another pedestrian in a city full of people going about their daily lives, invisible and unremarkable. At 8 o'clock, you arrive at a small cafe near the National Theater. The cafe is crowded with office workers grabbing coffee before work. You order coffee and a pastry, then sit at a table near the back. You open a newspaper and pretend to read while watching the entrance. At 8:15, she arrives. The woman from the island, still wearing the blue coat, still carrying a shopping bag. She orders tea and sits 3 tables away. You don't look at her directly, but you notice her hands are steadier than yours. You both sit in silence for several minutes. The cafe buzzes with conversation and the sound of coffee cups on saucers. Then, without turning toward you, she speaks in accented English. The words are coded, but the message is clear. The extraction is confirmed, the route is prepared, the timing is critical. She stands after 10 minutes, leaving money on the table. As she walks toward the door, she drops a small piece of paper near your chair. You finish your coffee, pay your bill, and pocket the paper without looking at it. Outside, you walk to the nearest public bathroom and read the paper in a locked stall. An address, a time, a brief instruction. Come alone. Bring nothing. The paper dissolves in the toilet water, leaving no trace. You have 6 hours to kill before the meeting. 6 hours to remain invisible, to avoid surveillance, to resist the urge to run. You walk through the city like a tourist, visiting museums and churches, blending into crowds of sightseers. You buy a guidebook and pretend to read about Prague's history while actually memorizing escape routes and safe houses. At the National Museum, you study exhibits about Bohemian kings and medieval battles. The displays are fascinating, but you can't concentrate. Your mind keeps returning to the meeting tonight, to the extraction procedure, to the possibility that this is all an elaborate trap. At lunch, you eat at a restaurant near the castle, sitting by a window that overlooks the city. Prague spreads out below you, a city of red roofs and church spires, of narrow streets and hidden courtyards. You've lived here for months, but you've never really seen it. You've been too busy being Pavel Novák to notice the beauty around you. The afternoon passes slowly. You visit more museums, walk through more streets, drink more coffee in more cafes. Each activity is calculated to waste time while providing cover. You are a tourist killing time before an evening engagement. You are entirely unremarkable. At 5 o'clock, you begin moving toward the meeting location. The address is in a residential district, a quiet neighborhood of small houses and tree-lined streets. You arrive early and spend an hour walking the area, checking for surveillance, identifying escape routes. The house is small and modest, indistinguishable from its neighbors. A light burns in the front window. A cat sits on the porch, watching the street with yellow eyes. You approach the door exactly on time. The woman from the cafe opens the door before you can knock. She motions you inside without speaking. The house is sparsely furnished but comfortable. A fire burns in the fireplace. Tea is set for 2. She pours tea and sits across from you in a well-worn armchair. For the first time, you look at her directly. She's older than you initially thought, perhaps 50, with gray hair and intelligent eyes. She speaks in unaccented English now, her real voice finally emerging. The conversation is brief and professional. Your extraction is confirmed for tomorrow night. You'll be taken to Vienna, then to Frankfurt, then to Washington. Pavel Novák will disappear forever, replaced by your original identity, your real name, your actual life. But first, there's one more task. One final piece of intelligence to gather. A meeting to attend, a document to photograph, a last service to perform for the country that sent you here. You nod your understanding. The mission isn't over. It's just changing. She gives you new instructions, a new identity, a new place to sleep tonight. You are no longer Pavel Novák, agricultural clerk. You are now Jan Svoboda, visiting professor, in Prague for academic conference. The transformation is complete in minutes, new papers, new background, new persona. You leave the house by the back door, walking through gardens and alleyways to avoid the street. The woman watches from the window until you disappear into the darkness. Your new lodging is a small hotel near the university. The room is clean and anonymous, with a bed, a desk, and a window overlooking a courtyard. You lie on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the final task ahead. Tomorrow, you'll attend a conference on agricultural policy. Boring presentations about crop yields and farming techniques. But hidden among the legitimate academics will be officials from the Ministry of Agriculture, including the man whose signature you've been forging for months. The man who signs shipping manifests for facilities that don't exist. You'll photograph his notes, his schedules, his contacts. One last intelligence coup before Jan Svoboda disappears as completely as Pavel Novák. You don't sleep well. The bed is comfortable, but your mind races with possibilities and contingencies. Every sound in the hotel corridor might be footsteps approaching your door. Every car on the street below might be surveillance. The paranoia that kept you alive for months is harder to control now that the end is in sight. At 3 in the morning, you get up and stand at the window. The courtyard below is empty except for a few parked cars. Snow has begun to fall, light flakes that melt as they hit the ground. Winter in Prague is ending, but slowly, reluctantly. You think about the woman in the blue coat, about the house with the fireplace, about the careful choreography of your extraction. How many people are involved in getting you out? How many lives depend on your success tomorrow? The weight of responsibility feels heavier than ever. At 4 o'clock, You give up on sleep and prepare for the day. You shower in lukewarm water, shave carefully, dress in clothes appropriate for a visiting professor. The transformation from Pavel Novák to Jan Svoboda is complete. You are someone else again, wearing another mask, playing another role. The hotel provides breakfast, coffee, bread, jam, cheese. You eat mechanically while reading a newspaper, playing the part of an academic preparing for a day of scholarly presentations. Around you, other guests discuss their plans for the day. Tourists planning to visit the castle. Businessmen preparing for meetings. Everyone has a purpose, a destination, a reason for being here. At 8 o'clock, you leave the hotel and walk toward the university. The morning is cold and gray, with snow still falling lightly. The streets are busy with people going to work, students hurrying to classes, the normal rhythm of a city beginning its day. The conference is being held in a modern building near the main campus. You arrive early and register, receiving a name tag and a folder of materials. The lobby is filled with academics from across Eastern Europe, all gathered to discuss agricultural policy and economic development. You blend into the crowd, just another professor attending another conference. The morning sessions are genuinely boring. Presentations about soil composition and irrigation techniques. Statistical analyses of crop yields. The kind of mind-numbing academic discourse that makes excellent cover for intelligence work. You sit in the back of the lecture hall, taking notes that appear scholarly but are actually observations about the attendees. At 10:30, during the coffee break, you see him. Minister Dvorak, the man whose signature you've been forging, whose files you've been photographing. He's older than his official photographs suggest, with gray hair and tired eyes. He moves through the crowd with the confidence of someone accustomed to authority. You approach him during the break, introducing yourself as Jan Svoboda, visiting professor from Charles University. He's polite but distracted, clearly attending the conference out of obligation rather than interest. You mention your research on agricultural productivity in border regions. He nods absently, his attention already moving to the next conversation. But the brief interaction gives you what you need. You've established your cover, made yourself memorable as a legitimate academic. When the security services investigate later, they'll find records of Jan Svoboda's attendance, his registration, his scholarly credentials. The paper trail will be perfect. The afternoon session is more interesting. A panel discussion on agricultural development in strategic regions. Minister Dvorak is one of the speakers, along with officials from other ministries and a few genuine academics. You sit in the front row, ostensibly taking notes about agricultural policy, actually photographing documents with the Matchbox camera. During his presentation, Dvorak refers to his notes frequently. From your position in the front row, you can see the papers clearly. Shipping schedules, facility codes, personnel assignments. The same information you've been gathering for months, but now confirmed at the highest levels. The camera clicks silently as you photograph page after page. To anyone watching, you're just an engaged academic, documenting the minister's presentation for your research. The reality is more complex. You're gathering intelligence that will be analyzed by specialists thousands of miles away. After the presentation, there's another coffee break. You approach Dvorak again, this time with specific questions about agricultural facilities in the border regions. He's more animated now, pleased to discuss his work with someone who seems genuinely interested. As he talks, he pulls out a small notebook and shows you maps, diagrams, facility locations. You listen attentively, asking intelligent questions, all while photographing everything he shows you. The notebook contains information that confirms your suspicions: agricultural facilities that are producing more than grain, shipping routes that don't make economic sense, personnel records that suggest military rather than civilian operations. The conversation lasts 20 minutes. When it ends, you have enough intelligence to justify months of careful work. The mission is complete. Jan Svoboda can disappear now, along with Pavel Novák and all the other identities you've worn. The conference ends at 5 o'clock. You mingle with other attendees, exchanging business cards, making plans for future academic collaborations that will never happen. Then you walk back to the hotel, taking a circuitous route through the city center. The evening is cold and clear, with stars visible through the urban haze. You walk past the National Theater, past the cafe where you met the woman in the blue coat, past the island where you received your final instructions. The city that has been your home and your prison for months feels different now. It's already becoming a memory. At the hotel, you pack your few belongings and prepare for the final phase of your extraction. At midnight, you'll walk to a specific address. A car will be waiting. By dawn, you'll be in Vienna. By tomorrow night, you'll be debriefed by handlers who know your real name. You sit in the hotel room, watching the snow fall outside your window. The courtyard below is empty, peaceful. Somewhere in the city, the woman in the blue coat is preparing for her own extraction, or settling into another identity, or disappearing into the network of safe houses and false papers. You'll never know which. You think about Pavel Novák, the agricultural clerk who lived in a small apartment and typed reports about grain production. He was a good cover identity, believable and unremarkable. He served his purpose and now he's gone, erased as thoroughly as if he never existed. You think about Jan Svoboda, the visiting professor who attended one conference and gathered intelligence that might prevent a war or start one. He was a brief performance, a role played for a single day. Tomorrow, he'll be forgotten as completely as Pavel Novák. At 11:30, you leave the hotel for the last time. The lobby is quiet, the desk clerk dozing at his station. You walk out into the cold night air, carrying only a small bag and the weight of months of careful work. The extraction point is a residential street 10 blocks away. You walk through empty streets, past darkened windows, past the remnants of a city settling into sleep. Your footsteps echo on the cold pavement, the only sound in the silence. The car is waiting exactly where it should be. Black sedan, driver wearing a dark coat, engine running. You get in without speaking. The driver nods once, then pulls away from the curb. As Prague disappears behind you, you think about all the cities you've lived in, all the identities you've worn, all the secrets you've gathered. This is the nature of the work, constant movement, constant change, constant performance. You are everyone and no one, everywhere and nowhere. The car carries you through the night, toward Vienna, toward extraction, toward home. But home is a concept that has become abstract, a place that exists more in memory than in reality. You've been gone so long that you wonder if you'll recognize it when you return. You close your eyes and try to sleep, but sleep doesn't come easily. Your mind is still in Prague, still playing the role of Pavel Novák, still calculating risks and watching for surveillance. It will take time to shed the habits of months, to remember how to be yourself again. The car drives through the darkness, carrying you toward safety, toward debriefing, toward the next mission. Because there will be a next mission. There always is. The Cold War is a patient conflict, fought in shadows and silence, with victories and defeats that are rarely acknowledged. You are a small part of this vast machine, a single operative in a network that spans continents. But your work matters. The intelligence you've gathered, the risks you've taken, the months of careful performance, all of it contributes to the delicate balance that keeps the world from sliding into open war. The car crosses the border sometime after dawn. You show your papers to guards who examine them with professional thoroughness. Jan Svoboda, visiting professor, returning home after a successful conference. The story is perfect, the documentation flawless. Vienna appears on the horizon as the sun rises. The city looks different from Prague, more prosperous, more Western, more free. You realize you've been holding your breath for months, and now you can finally exhale. But even as the car carries you towards safety, you know that part of you will always remain in Prague. Part of you will always be Pavel Novák, typing reports in a gray office, walking through cold streets, sitting in a small apartment and watching the snow fall. The identities you've worn become part of you, ghosts that follow you wherever you go. The car pulls up to a safe house in a quiet neighborhood. You get out, stretching muscles that have been tense for hours. The driver nods farewell and drives away, leaving you standing on a sidewalk in Vienna, free for the first time in months. You walk to the front door of the safe house and knock 3 times. The door opens immediately, revealing a man in a suit who knows your real name. He smiles and welcomes you home. But home is still a concept you're learning to understand again. Inside the safe house, you begin the process of becoming yourself, of shedding the masks and performances that have kept you alive. It's a slow process, like waking from a long dream. You sit in a comfortable chair and accept a cup of real coffee, not the dust and disappointment you've been drinking for months. The coffee tastes like freedom, like safety, like the possibility of a life beyond constant vigilance. The debriefer asks questions about your time in Prague, about the intelligence you've gathered, about the contacts you've made. You answer professionally, providing details and context, explaining the significance of each piece of information. But part of your mind is still in a small apartment, still checking for surveillance, still listening for footsteps in the hallway. The habits of months don't disappear overnight. The paranoia that kept you alive will take time to fade. As the debriefing continues, you think about the woman in the blue coat. Did she make it out? Is she sitting in another safe house, in another city, answering similar questions? The nature of the work means you'll never know. People appear in your life, play crucial roles, then disappear forever. You think about Minister Dvorak, still attending conferences, still signing documents, still unaware that his every move has been observed and recorded. The intelligence you've gathered will be analyzed, acted upon, filed away. The minister will never know how close he came to exposure. The debriefing ends after several hours. You're given new clothes, a new identity, a ticket back to the United States. But first, you're told to rest, to recover, to remember how to be yourself again. You're assigned a room in the safe house. It's larger than Pavel Novák's apartment, warmer, more comfortable. You have a real bed, a proper bathroom, a window that opens onto a garden instead of a gray street. You lie on the bed and stare at the ceiling, thinking about the months behind you and the uncertain future ahead. The mission is complete, but the work continues. There will be other cities, other identities, other secrets to gather. But for now, you're safe. For now, you can rest. For now, you can begin the slow process of remembering who you were before you became Pavel Novák, before you learned to live in constant fear, before you discovered that identity is just another tool in the intelligence trade. You close your eyes and try to sleep, but sleep still doesn't come easily. Your mind is still in Prague, still playing roles, still watching for threats. It will take time to learn how to be yourself again, how to live without constantly looking over your shoulder. The safe house is quiet around you. No Mrs. Kozlov coughing in the apartment below. No gurgling pipes in the walls. No footsteps in the hallway that might mean discovery and death. Just silence, peaceful and safe. You think about the cat that used to cross the street outside your Prague apartment, picking its way carefully through the shadows, disappearing into alleys, surviving by being invisible. You understand that cat now. You've learned to move through the world the same way. But cats can stop running eventually. They can find warm places to sleep, safe places to rest. Maybe you can too. Maybe the next chapter of your life will be quieter, safer, more predictable. Or maybe there will be another city, another identity, another performance. Maybe Pavel Novák will be replaced by another character, another mask, another careful construction of lies and half-truths. You don't know what comes next. In this business, you rarely do. You learn to live with uncertainty, to find comfort in the unknown, to trust in the careful plans of people whose names you'll never know. The afternoon light fades outside your window. Vienna settles into evening, a city at peace with itself. You lie in the safe house bed, between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. Tomorrow, you'll fly back to the United States. You'll be debriefed again, analyzed, evaluated. You'll be given time to recover before the next assignment. But tonight, you're in limbo, floating between worlds. You think about Prague one last time. The cold streets, the gray buildings, the small apartment where Pavel Novák lived and died. The city that was your home and your prison for months. The place where you learned that survival sometimes requires losing yourself completely. Then you close your eyes and try to sleep, knowing that tomorrow will bring new challenges, new identities, new performances. The work continues. The Cold War continues. And somewhere in the space between sleeping and waking, between memory and dream, Pavel Novák finally disappears forever. The final evening arrives without ceremony. You're back in Washington now, in an apartment that's supposed to be home but feels like another safe house. The debriefing is complete. The intelligence has been processed. The mission is officially over. But you can't shake the feeling that you're still performing, still playing a role. This apartment, these clothes, this life, they all feel like another cover identity. You wonder if you'll ever feel authentic again, or if authenticity is just another luxury you've sacrificed for the work. You sit by the window, looking out at a street that's nothing like Prague. No cobblestones, no medieval architecture, no sense of history pressing down from every building. Just suburban American normalcy, safe and comfortable and utterly foreign after months of careful vigilance. There's a letter on your coffee table. New assignment, new location, new identity waiting to be born. You haven't opened it yet. You're not sure you want to. Instead, you think about the woman in the blue coat. About Minister Dvorak and his notebooks full of secrets. About the small apartment where Pavel Novák lived and died. About the weight of carrying other people's lives in your pockets. You think about the cat that used to cross the street outside your Prague window. Still picking its way through shadows, still surviving by being invisible. Some things don't change, no matter how far you travel. The letter sits unopened on the table. Inside, another city waits. Another identity. Another performance that might last months or years. The work continues because it has to continue, because the alternative is worse than the cost. You pour yourself a drink, real whiskey, not the harsh vodka you drank in Prague. The glass feels strange in your hand, too clean, too honest. You've grown accustomed to things that aren't what they seem. Outside, the street settles into evening. Families having dinner, children playing, people living lives that don't require constant vigilance. You envy them their normalcy, their ability to exist without masks. But you also understand something they don't. The price of their safety, the cost of their freedom. The work that happens in shadows so they can live in light. It's a transaction they'll never know about. A debt they'll never have to pay. You raise the glass to your lips but don't drink. Instead, you think about Pavel Novák one last time. About the man who never existed but who lived for months in a small apartment, typing reports about grain production, walking through cold streets, sitting by a window and watching snow fall. He was a good cover identity. Believable, unremarkable, effective. He served his purpose and now he's gone. Erased as thoroughly as if he never existed. But part of him lingers, a ghost in the machine of your memory. You set the glass down without drinking and walk to the window. The street below is quiet, peaceful. No surveillance, no watchers, no threats. Just the ordinary safety of suburban America, bought and paid for with the work of people like you. You think about tomorrow, about the letter on the table, about the next mission waiting to be born. Another city, another identity, another performance. The cycle continues because it has to continue. But tonight, you're between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. Tonight, you're neither Pavel Novák nor Jan Svoboda nor anyone else. You're just someone sitting by a window, watching the world settle into darkness. You don't open the letter. Not yet. Instead, you sit in the silence and remember what it feels like to be still, to be quiet, to be nothing more than a person in a room, watching the night fall. The street empties as evening becomes night. Lights go on in windows, families gather around dinner tables, the world continues its ancient rhythm. You watch it all from your window, an observer on the edge of normal life. Somewhere in Prague, snow is falling on empty streets. The small apartment where Pavel Novák lived stands empty, waiting for another tenant, another story, another performance. The city continues its life, indifferent to the small drama that played out in its shadows. You think about the intelligence you gathered, the photographs you took, the secrets you carried. By now, they've been analyzed, categorized, filed away. The work has been done. The mission has been completed. The price has been paid. But the cost lingers. The months of careful performance, the constant vigilance, the gradual erosion of authentic identity. These are the hidden expenses of the work, the debts that accumulate in silence. You sit by the window until late into the night, thinking about cities and identities and the price of keeping the world safe. The letter on the table waits patiently, holding another life, another performance, another sacrifice. Finally, you stand and walk to the bedroom. You don't open the letter. Tomorrow is soon enough for that. Tonight, you want to sit with the silence, to remember what it feels like to be still. You move to the bedroom and lie down on sheets that smell like American detergent. The mattress is soft, too soft after months of sleeping on the thin bed in Prague. Everything here is too comfortable, too safe, too real. You stare at the ceiling and listen to the sounds of suburban peace. No footsteps in hallways. No coughing through thin walls. No pipes gurgling with the weight of secrets. But sleep doesn't come. Your body is here, in this safe apartment, but your mind is still walking cold streets, still checking reflections in shop windows, still listening for the sound of surveillance. The habits of months don't disappear simply because you've crossed an ocean. You get up and walk to the kitchen. The refrigerator hums quietly, filled with food you didn't have to queue for, didn't have to pay for with carefully counted coins. You open a can of soup and heat it on the stove, standing in the yellow light of the kitchen, thinking about the woman in the blue coat. About Minister Dvorak and his notebooks. About the small apartment where Pavel Novák lived his careful, invisible life. The soup tastes like nothing. Everything tastes like nothing now. Your senses are still calibrated for danger, for the subtle differences that might mean survival or death. This peaceful American soup, this safe American kitchen, this normal American life, they register as background noise, pleasant but meaningless. You eat standing at the counter, looking out at the backyard where nothing threatening moves in the shadows. No watchers, no surveillance, no careful choreography of tradecraft. Just grass and trees and the ordinary darkness of a place where people sleep safely. After eating, you return to the living room and sit in the chair by the window. The street is empty now, lit by streetlights that create pools of yellow warmth. A cat walks along the sidewalk, and for a moment your chest tightens. But this cat moves differently than the one in Prague. This cat is well fed, comfortable, unafraid. It stops to groom itself under a streetlight, then continues on its way without looking back. You think about the letter on the coffee table. Inside, another mission waits. Another city, another identity, another performance that will require you to forget who you were and become someone else. The cycle continues because it has to continue. Because somewhere in the world, people are making plans that require watching, secrets that need stealing, truths that must be uncovered. But tonight, you're between performances. Tonight, you exist in the space between identities, in the quiet moment before the next mask is put on. You sit in the chair and let yourself feel the weight of months, the accumulated fatigue of constant vigilance, the strange emptiness that comes when you stop running and realize you've forgotten how to be still. The clock on the mantel ticks steadily. 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 in the morning. Time moves differently here, measured in comfort rather than survival. You don't have to wake at 4:47. You don't have to check for surveillance or decode messages written in invisible ink. You don't have to be anyone other than yourself. But who is that, exactly? The question sits in your chest like a weight. After months of being Pavel Novák, after years of being other people in other places, the boundaries of your real identity have become blurred. You are everyone and no one, a collection of performances searching for an authentic core. At 2 in the morning, you finally open the letter. The new assignment is in Berlin. Another divided city, another place where the Cold War plays out in shadows and silence. You'll be a journalist this time, covering cultural events, writing articles about art and music while gathering intelligence about Soviet activities in the Eastern Sector. It's a good cover, believable and flexible. Journalists are expected to be curious, to ask questions, to meet interesting people. The briefing materials are thorough. Maps of the city, background on your new identity, contact procedures, safe houses, extraction protocols. Everything you need to disappear into another life, another performance, another careful construction of lies and half-truths. You read through the materials twice, memorizing details, noting inconsistencies, preparing for the moment when you'll have to become someone else again. The work is familiar, comforting in its precision. You know how to do this. You've done it before, but part of you resists. Part of you wants to stay in this safe apartment, to sleep in this comfortable bed, to eat soup from cans and watch cats walk safely through suburban streets. Part of you is tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of being afraid. You set the materials aside and return to the chair by the window. The street is still empty, still peaceful. Dawn is still hours away. You have time to sit with the silence, to remember what it feels like to be still. You think about your first mission, years ago, in a different city under a different name. You were younger then, more certain about the importance of the work, more convinced that the sacrifices were worth making. The world seemed clearer then, divided into simple categories of us and them, right and wrong, necessary and unnecessary. Now the categories have blurred. You've lived too many lives, worn too many masks, carried too many secrets. The weight of it all has accumulated like sediment, layer upon layer of performance and pretense, until you can no longer find the bedrock of who you really are. You think about the people you've met along the way, assets who trusted you with their lives, handlers who sent you into danger, other operatives who shared the burden of invisible work. Most of them are gone now, disappeared into other identities or other assignments or other fates. The work creates connections that are intense but temporary, meaningful but ultimately disposable. The woman in the blue coat. Where is she now? Is she sitting in another safe house, reading another briefing, preparing for another performance? Or has she retired from the work, found a way to live without constant vigilance? You'll never know. The nature of the work means that people appear in your life, play crucial roles, then disappear forever. You think about Minister Dvorak, still in Prague, still attending conferences, still unaware that his every move was observed and recorded. The intelligence you gathered about his activities will be analyzed, acted upon, filed away. But the minister himself will continue his life, oblivious to the shadow that fell across it for months. This is the strange mathematics of intelligence work. You affect people's lives without them knowing, gather information that shapes policy and strategy, participate in events that change the world in small but significant ways. Yet you remain invisible, your contributions unacknowledged, your sacrifices unmeasured. The clock chimes 3 times. You're still sitting in the chair by the window, still thinking about cities and identities and the price of keeping the world safe. The Berlin assignment waits patiently, another life ready to be lived, another performance ready to be given. But you're not ready yet. You need more time to sit with the silence, to remember what it feels like to be still. You need to let the weight of Prague settle, to allow Pavel Novák to fade completely before putting on another mask. You get up and walk to the kitchen. You make coffee, real coffee, not the instant powder you drank for months. The smell fills the small space, rich and warm and honest. You drink it standing at the counter, looking out at the backyard where nothing moves in the pre-dawn darkness. The coffee tastes like freedom, like the possibility of a life without constant fear, without endless performance, without the weight of secrets pressing down on your chest. But freedom is another luxury you've learned to do without. Freedom is something other people have, people who don't carry the burden of invisible work. You finish the coffee and return to the living room. The Berlin materials are spread across the coffee table, waiting for your attention. Maps and photographs, background reports and contact procedures. The machinery of another mission, another identity, another careful construction of lies. You sit in the chair and pick up the materials. Your new name will be Thomas Weber, freelance journalist, specializing in cultural affairs. You'll have an apartment in the Western sector, credentials with several newspapers, a backstory that explains why you're interested in Berlin's artistic community. It's a good cover, flexible and believable. But as you read through the materials, you realize something has changed. The work that once excited you now feels heavy, burdensome. The prospect of another performance, another mask, another months-long deception fills you with weariness rather than anticipation. You set the materials aside and lean back in the chair. Maybe this is what happens to everyone in the work eventually. Maybe there's a limit to how many identities you can wear, how many performances you can give, how many secrets you can carry. Maybe you're approaching that limit. The thought is both frightening and liberating. Frightening because the work has been your life for so long that you're not sure who you were without it. Liberating because it suggests the possibility of something different, something more authentic, something that doesn't require constant vigilance. You think about the suburbs around you, filled with people living ordinary lives. People who go to work without checking for surveillance, who come home to families that know their real names, who sleep without listening for footsteps in hallways. It seems like a pleasant way to live, though you're not sure you remember how to do it. The clock chimes 4 times. Dawn is approaching, bringing with it the need to make decisions. You can accept the Berlin assignment and continue the work, adding Thomas Weber to your collection of identities. Or you can walk away, Try to find a way to live without masks and performances and endless fear. But walking away isn't simple. The work has shaped you, changed you, left marks that can't be erased. You know things that make you dangerous, carry secrets that make you valuable. The agency doesn't let people like you simply disappear into suburban normalcy. There are protocols, procedures, ways of managing former assets that don't always end well. You get up and walk to the window. The street is still empty, but the darkness is beginning to lighten. Dawn comes slowly in this part of the world, creeping across the suburbs like a gentle tide. You watch it approach and think about all the dawns you've seen in other cities, under other names, carrying other secrets. In Prague, you watched dawn break over medieval spires and communist housing blocks. In Vienna, you saw it illuminate Baroque architecture and modern safe houses. In a dozen other cities, you've stood at windows and watched the sun rise on another day of careful performance, another day of invisible work. This dawn is different. This dawn breaks over a place where you're supposed to be safe, where you're supposed to be yourself. But safety and authenticity feel like foreign concepts now, luxuries you've forgotten how to enjoy. You return to the chair and pick up the Berlin materials again. The photographs show a city still scarred by war, still divided by ideology, still struggling with the weight of history. It's a perfect place for intelligence work, full of opportunities and dangers, secrets and lies. Thomas Weber will be a good cover identity. He'll attend gallery openings and concert performances, write articles about the city's cultural renaissance while gathering intelligence about Soviet activities. He'll live in a small apartment, maintain a low profile, blend into the artistic community. It's work you know how to do, work you've done before. But Thomas Weber will also be another mask, another performance, another step away from whoever you really are. And you're not sure you can take that step again, not sure you can put on another identity and carry it for months or years. You set the materials aside and lean back in the chair. The decision doesn't have to be made today. You have time to think, to weigh options, to consider possibilities. The agency is patient with valuable assets, understanding of the need for rest and recovery. Outside, the dawn continues its slow arrival. Birds begin to sing in the trees, the first tentative songs of another day. The sound is peaceful, ordinary, the kind of simple pleasure you've learned to notice and appreciate. In Prague, you rarely heard birdsong. The city was too cold, too gray, too focused on survival to make space for such things. You think about the small apartment where Pavel Novák lived and died. Someone else is living there now, another tenant in another story. The building continues its life, indifferent to the drama that played out in its rooms. Mrs. Kozlov probably still coughs in the apartment below. The elevator probably still doesn't work. The pipes probably still gurgle with the weight of secrets. But Pavel Novák is gone, erased as thoroughly as if he never existed. Only you remember him, carry the weight of his months-long performance, hold the secrets he gathered in his careful, invisible life. He was a good cover identity, believable and effective. He served his purpose and then disappeared. You wonder if that's how it will end for you eventually. Will you disappear as completely as Pavel Novák, leaving behind only the intelligence you gathered, the secrets you carried, the invisible work you performed? Will someone else remember you, or will you fade into the classified files and forgotten missions that make up the hidden history of the Cold War? The thought is both melancholy and comforting. Melancholy because it suggests a life lived in shadows, contributions unacknowledged, sacrifices unmeasured. Comforting because it suggests that the burden of secrets will eventually be lifted, that the weight of performance will eventually be set down. You get up and walk to the kitchen. You make breakfast, eggs and toast, simple food that tastes like normalcy. You eat sitting at the small table, looking out at the backyard where morning light filters through the trees. The world is waking up around you, but you feel suspended between sleep and waking, between the life you've lived and the life you might live. After breakfast, you shower and dress in clothes that feel too clean, too honest. You look at yourself in the mirror and see a face that's older than your years, marked by stress and sleepless nights and the constant vigilance of dangerous work. But it's your face, not Pavel Novak's or Jan Svoboda's or any of the other identities you've worn. For now, at least, you're yourself. You return to the living room and sit in the chair by the window. The street is busier now, people going to work, children walking to school, the ordinary rhythm of suburban life. You watch it all with the trained eye of someone who's spent years observing, analyzing, remembering. But there's no threat here, no surveillance to detect, no patterns to decode. Just the pleasant chaos of normal people living normal lives. The Berlin materials are still spread across the coffee table. Thomas Weber waits patiently, another identity ready to be born, another performance ready to be given. The work continues because it has to continue, because somewhere in the world, people are making plans that require watching, secrets that need stealing, truths that must be uncovered. But maybe it doesn't have to be you. Maybe someone else can carry that burden, wear those masks, live those careful lies. Maybe you've done enough, sacrificed enough, given enough to the invisible work that keeps the world safe. You think about the woman in the blue coat, about her steady hands and coded words. She understood the weight of the work, the cost of constant performance, the price of carrying secrets. Maybe she's found a way to lay down that burden, to live without masks and fear and endless vigilance. Or maybe she's sitting in another safe house, reading another briefing, preparing for another mission. Maybe the work continues for her as it continues for everyone who's chosen this life, this burden, this invisible contribution to the hidden history of the world. The clock chimes 10 times. The morning is advancing, bringing with it the need to make decisions, to choose directions, to commit to courses of action. You can accept the Berlin assignment and continue the work. You can request more time to recover, to think, to consider your options. You can try to walk away, though you know it's not that simple. But for now, you sit in the chair by the window and watch the world go about its business. The suburbs around you are full of people living ordinary lives, people who don't know about the work you do, the secrets you carry, the invisible contributions you make to their safety and freedom. They go to work and come home, love their families and pursue their dreams, live their lives without constant fear. You envy them their normalcy, their ability to exist without masks and performance and endless vigilance. But you also understand something they don't, the price of their safety, the cost of their freedom, the work that happens in shadows so they can live in light. It's a transaction they'll never know about, a debt they'll never have to pay. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what makes the work worthwhile, the sacrifices meaningful, the burden bearable. You lean back in the chair and close your eyes. The morning light filters through the window, warm and gentle and honest. The sounds of suburban life drift in from the street, cars starting, children laughing, dogs barking. The ordinary sounds of a world at peace. You think about Prague one last time, about the cold streets and gray buildings, about the small apartment where Pavel Novák lived his careful, invisible life. You think about the woman in the blue coat, about Minister Dvorak and his notebooks, about the cat that picked its way through shadows and garbage, surviving by being invisible. Then you open your eyes and look at the Berlin materials on the coffee table. Thomas Weber waits patiently, another identity ready to be born. The work continues because it has to continue. And maybe, for a little while longer, it will be you who carries that burden, who wears those masks, who lives those careful lies. Or maybe not. Maybe this is where it ends, in a safe apartment on a quiet street, with morning light filtering through clean windows and the sound of ordinary life drifting in from outside. Maybe Pavel Novák was your last performance, your final mask, your ultimate contribution to the invisible work. You don't know yet. The decision will come when it comes, shaped by necessity and opportunity, by the needs of the work and the limits of your endurance. For now, you sit in the chair by the window and let yourself be still. Let yourself be quiet. Let yourself exist in the space between identities. The suburbs around you continue their peaceful rhythm. People go to work, children play, families live their lives without fear. The world turns on its axis, carrying them all toward another day of ordinary safety, ordinary freedom, ordinary happiness. And you sit in the chair by the window, watching it all, thinking about cities and identities and the price of keeping the world safe. The work continues somewhere, carried by someone, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. You lean back in the chair and close your eyes again, letting the sound of suburban peace wash over you like a gentle tide. The world is safe, for now. The work is done, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking, between the life you've lived and the life you might yet live. You sit in the silence and remember what it feels like to be still. The clock ticks steadily on the mantel, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. The street outside continues its ordinary rhythm, carrying people toward their daily lives. And you exist in the quiet space between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. The Berlin materials rest on the coffee table, waiting for your decision. Thomas Weber waits patiently for life, another identity ready to be born. But he can wait a little longer. Right now, you're content to sit in the chair by the window, to feel the morning light on your face, to listen to the sounds of a world at peace. You think about the woman in the blue coat one last time, about her steady hands and coded words, about the shopping bag she left on the bench by the river. She understood the weight of the work, the cost of constant performance, the price of carrying secrets. Maybe she found a way to lay down that burden. Maybe she's sitting in her own chair by her own window, feeling her own moment of peace. Or maybe she's already wearing another mask, living another life, carrying another set of secrets. The work continues for someone, somewhere, because it has to continue. But for now, it's not your burden to bear. You close your eyes and let the morning light filter through your eyelids, warm and gentle and honest. The sounds of suburban life drift in from the street, ordinary sounds of ordinary people living ordinary lives. You sit in the chair by the window and let yourself be still, let yourself be quiet, let yourself exist in the space between performances. The work will continue, the world will keep turning, and you will make your decision when you're ready, shaped by necessity and opportunity, by the needs of the work and the limits of your endurance. But for now, you sit in the silence and remember what it feels like to be still. The clock ticks on the mantel. The street continues its peaceful rhythm. And you exist in the quiet space between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. You lean back in the chair and let yourself drift, not quite sleeping, not quite waking, floating in the space between performance and authenticity. The weight of months begins to lift, the burden of secrets begins to ease. You are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking. The world is safe, for now. The work is done, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning, in the ordinary sounds of suburban peace, in the quiet space between who you were and who you might yet become. You sit in the chair by the window and let the silence wash over you like a gentle tide. The morning light filters through clean glass, warm and honest and real. The sounds of ordinary life drift in from the street, people going to work, children playing, families living their lives without fear. And you exist in the quiet space between identities, between missions, between the life you've lived and the life you might yet live. The work continues somewhere, carried by someone, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You close your eyes and let yourself be still, let yourself be quiet, let yourself exist in the space between sleeping and waking. The clock ticks steadily on the mantel, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. The world turns on its axis, carrying everyone toward another day of ordinary safety, ordinary freedom, ordinary happiness. And you sit in the chair by the window, finally still, finally quiet, finally at rest in the gentle light of morning. The work will continue, the world will keep turning, and you will make your decision when you're ready. But for now, you sit in the silence and remember what it feels like to be still. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. You lean back in the chair and close your eyes, letting the sound of suburban peace wash over you like a gentle tide. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You sit in the silence and let yourself drift, not quite sleeping, not quite waking, floating in the space between performance and authenticity. The weight of secrets begins to ease, the burden of constant vigilance begins to lift. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. The street outside continues its ordinary rhythm. People go to work, children play, families live their lives without fear. The world turns on its axis, carrying them all toward another day of ordinary safety, ordinary freedom, ordinary happiness. And you sit in the chair by the window, watching it all, thinking about cities and identities and the price of keeping the world safe. The work continues somewhere, carried by someone, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You close your eyes and let the morning light filter through your eyelids, warm and gentle and honest. The sounds of suburban life drift in from the street, ordinary sounds of ordinary people living ordinary lives. You sit in the chair by the window and let yourself be still. The clock ticks on the mantel. The world turns on its axis. And you exist in the quiet space between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. You lean back in the chair and let yourself drift, floating in the space between sleeping and waking. The work will continue, the world will keep turning, and you will make your decision when you're ready. But for now, you sit in the silence and remember what it feels like to be still. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning, in the ordinary sounds of suburban peace, in the quiet space between who you were and who you might yet become. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking. The morning light filters through the window, warm and honest and real. The sounds of ordinary life drift in from the street. The clock ticks steadily on the mantel, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. And you sit in the chair by the window, finally still, finally quiet, finally at rest in the gentle light of morning. You close your eyes and let the silence wash over you like a gentle tide, carrying you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You are still, finally still, in the space between identities, between missions, between the life you've lived and the life you might yet live. The work continues somewhere, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You sit in the silence and let yourself drift, not quite sleeping, not quite waking, floating in the space between performance and authenticity. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. And you are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking, between the person you were and the person you might become. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. You close your eyes and let the silence carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space where nothing needs to be performed, nothing needs to be hidden, nothing needs to be feared. You are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking. The morning light filters through your eyelids, warm and gentle and honest. The sounds of suburban peace drift in from the street. The clock ticks steadily on the mantel, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. And you sit in the chair by the window, finally still, finally quiet, finally at rest in the gentle light of morning. You let the silence wash over you like a gentle tide, carrying you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You are still, finally still, in the space between identities, between missions, between the life you've lived and the life you might yet live. The work continues somewhere, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You close your eyes and let yourself drift, floating in the space between performance and authenticity, between the person you were and the person you might become. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. And you are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning, in the ordinary sounds of suburban peace, in the space between sleeping and waking. You sit in the silence and let it carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space where nothing needs to be performed, nothing needs to be hidden, nothing needs to be feared. You are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking. The clock ticks on the mantel. The street continues its peaceful rhythm. And you exist in the quiet space between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. The work will continue, the world will keep turning, and you will make your decision when you're ready. But for now, you sit in the silence and remember what it feels like to be still. You close your eyes and let the morning light filter through your eyelids, warm and gentle and honest. The sounds of suburban life drift in from the street. You sit in the chair by the window and let yourself be still. And you are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking, between the life you've lived and the life you might yet live. The work continues somewhere, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You sit in the silence and let it carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space where nothing needs to be performed. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning, in the space between sleeping and waking. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. You lean back in the chair and close your eyes, letting the sound of suburban peace wash over you like a gentle tide. And you are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. You sit in the silence and let yourself drift, not quite sleeping, not quite waking, floating in the space between performance and authenticity. The clock ticks steadily on the mantle, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. And you are still, finally still, in the space between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. You close your eyes and let the silence carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. The work continues somewhere, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You sit in the silence and let it wash over you like a gentle tide, carrying you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space where nothing needs to be feared. The morning light filters through the window, warm and honest and real. The sounds of ordinary life drift in from the street, and you are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking. You close your eyes and let the silence carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning, in the space between who you were and who you might yet become. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You sit in the silence and let it carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the gentle space where nothing needs to be performed. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. The clock ticks on the mantle. The street continues its peaceful rhythm. And you exist in the quiet space between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. You close your eyes and let the silence wash over you like a gentle tide, carrying you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You are still, finally still, in the space between performance and authenticity. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. You lean back in the chair and let yourself drift, floating in the space between sleeping and waking. The work continues somewhere, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning, in the ordinary sounds of suburban peace, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You sit in the silence and let it carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the gentle space where nothing needs to be feared. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking. You close your eyes and let the silence carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between who you were and who you might yet become. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. The clock ticks steadily on the mantle, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. The street continues its peaceful rhythm outside your window. And you sit in the silence, finally still, finally quiet, finally at rest in the space between sleeping and waking. The work continues somewhere, carried by someone, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You close your eyes and let the morning light filter through your eyelids, warm and gentle and honest. The sounds of suburban life drift in from the street. You let the silence wash over you like a gentle tide, carrying you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space where nothing needs to be performed. You are still, finally still, in the space between identities, between missions, between the life you've lived and the life you might yet live. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. And you lean back in the chair and close your eyes, letting the sound of suburban peace carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. The work will continue, the world will keep turning, and you will make your decision when you're ready. But for now, you sit in the silence and remember what it feels like to be still. You are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking, between the person you were and the person you might become. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. You close your eyes and let the silence carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space where nothing needs to be hidden, nothing needs to be feared. You are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking. The morning light filters through the window, warm and honest and real. The sounds of ordinary life drift in from the street. The clock ticks steadily on the mantel, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. And you sit in the chair by the window, finally still, finally quiet, finally at rest in the gentle light of morning. You let the silence wash over you like a gentle tide, carrying you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between sleeping and waking. You are still, finally still, in the space between identities, between missions, between the life you've lived and the life you might yet live. The work continues somewhere, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. You close your eyes and let yourself drift, not quite sleeping, not quite waking, floating in the space between performance and authenticity. The morning light grows stronger, filling the room with warmth and possibility. And you are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning, in the space between who you were and who you might yet become. You sit in the silence and let it carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space where nothing needs to be performed, nothing needs to be hidden, nothing needs to be feared. You are still, finally still, in the space between sleeping and waking. The clock ticks on the mantel. The street continues its peaceful rhythm. And you exist in the quiet space between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. You are still, finally still, in the gentle light of morning. The work will continue, the world will keep turning, and you will make your decision when you're ready. But for now, you sit in the silence and remember what it feels like to be still. You close your eyes and let the silence carry you toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet space between who you were and who you might yet become. The morning light in Washington is different from the gray dawn of Prague, softer, less oppressive, but it still feels foreign. You sit in the chair by the window, the Berlin materials untouched on the coffee table, and let your mind drift. The suburbs outside hum with ordinary life. Cars pulling out of driveways, a distant lawnmower, the soft chatter of neighbors. These sounds should be comforting, but they only remind you of how far you are from the world you've known for months, a world of cold streets, coded messages, and constant vigilance. You stand and walk to the kitchen, your bare feet silent on the carpeted floor. The refrigerator hums, a steady, unthreatening sound. You open it and take out a carton of milk, pouring it into a glass. The milk is cold, fresh, nothing like the powdered substitute you mixed with lukewarm water in Prague. You drink slowly, standing at the counter, staring at the backyard where morning light filters through the trees. A squirrel darts across the grass, pauses, then vanishes into a hedge. You watch it disappear, and for a moment, you envy its simplicity, its ability to exist without fear of being watched. The Berlin assignment waits. Thomas Weber, freelance journalist, a new mask to wear, a new life to live. You know the routine, new papers, new backstory, new habits to adopt. You'll rent a small apartment in West Berlin, blend into the city's vibrant cultural scene, Attend gallery openings and theater performances while quietly gathering intelligence. You'll drink bad coffee in smoky cafes, read newspapers that mean nothing, watch faces for signs of recognition or suspicion. It's familiar work, work you've done before, work you're good at. But the thought of starting again, of becoming someone else, makes your chest tighten. You set the empty glass in the sink and return to the living room. The clock on the mantel ticks steadily, marking time in a way that feels both comforting and relentless. It's 10:30 now, the morning advancing toward decisions you're not ready to make. You sit in the chair by the window again, the Berlin materials still spread across the coffee table like a map to another life. You pick up a photograph of a Berlin street, divided by the wall, half vibrant and half gray. The image feels like a metaphor for your own existence, split between the person you were and the person you've become. You lean back and close your eyes, letting the sounds of the suburbs wash over you. A dog barks in the distance. A car door slams. Children laugh as they ride bicycles down the street. These are the sounds of safety, of normalcy, of a life you've almost forgotten how to live. You try to imagine yourself here, in this apartment, in this city, without a cover identity, without a mission. But the image is blurry, like a photograph taken in low light. You've spent so long being someone else that being yourself feels like an act of imagination. The clock chimes 11. You open your eyes and look at the Berlin materials again. The briefing is thorough, as always. Safe houses, contact protocols, extraction routes. You'll have a handler in Berlin, someone you've never met, someone who knows you only as Thomas Weber. You'll pass information through dead drops in parks, coded messages in newspaper articles, brief encounters in crowded cafes. You'll live in a small apartment with thin walls, listening for footsteps, checking for surveillance, erasing yourself every day to remain invisible. You stand and walk to the bedroom, needing to move, needing to shake the weight of indecision. The bed is still unmade, the sheets crumpled from your restless night. You smooth them out, a small act of control in a world that feels increasingly uncertain. The room smells of clean laundry and wood polish, a stark contrast to the stale air of your Prague apartment, heavy with the scent of boiled cabbage and old cigarettes. You sit on the edge of the bed and look at your hands, calloused from months of gripping typewriters and matchbox cameras, steady despite the turmoil in your mind. You think about the woman in the blue coat again, her steady hands as she fed breadcrumbs to the ducks, her coded words about the weather. She was a professional, like you, someone who understood the weight of the work, the cost of living a lie. You wonder if she ever questioned the mission, ever considered walking away, ever sat in a safe house and stared at a new assignment with the same mix of dread and duty that you feel now. You'll never know. Her story, like so many others in this work, is a shadow that fades into the background. You return to the living room and pick up the Berlin materials again. The photograph of the wall stares back at you, a concrete barrier dividing a city, a symbol of the world you've chosen to inhabit. You read through the background on Thomas Weber, memorizing details of his fictional life, born in Munich, studied journalism in Frankfurt, worked for small newspapers before going freelance. It's a good cover, flexible enough to allow access to the people and places you need to observe, unremarkable enough to avoid suspicion. But as you read, you feel the weight of another performance settling onto your shoulders. Thomas Weber will require new habits, new routines, new ways of moving through the world. You'll have to learn the rhythm of Berlin's streets, the cadence of its conversations, the subtle signals that separate friend from foe. You'll have to forget Pavel Novák, forget Jan Svoboda, Forget the person you were before you stepped into this world of shadows and secrets. You set the materials down and walk to the kitchen. You make another cup of coffee, the ritual familiar even in this safe apartment. The coffee maker gurgles softly, filling the room with a rich, warm scent. You pour the coffee into a clean mug and carry it to the window, standing there as the morning light grows stronger. The suburbs are fully awake now, alive with the ordinary chaos of daily life. A mailman walks his route, stuffing envelopes into mailboxes. A woman jogs past, her breath visible in the cool air. A child rides a tricycle on the sidewalk, laughing as his mother watches from the porch. You sip the coffee and watch the scene unfold, feeling like a spectator in someone else's life. This is what you've been fighting for, you tell yourself. The safety of these people, the freedom of this ordinary world. But the thought feels hollow, a justification you've repeated too many times to fully believe. The work is necessary, but it's also endless, a cycle of performance and erasure that leaves you wondering if there's anything left of the person you once were. The clock chimes noon. You finish the coffee and set the mug in the sink, next to the milk glass from earlier. The Berlin materials are still on the coffee table, waiting for your decision. You walk back to the chair and sit down, picking up the photograph of the wall again. You trace the line of the barrier with your finger, feeling the texture of the paper, the weight of the city it represents. Berlin is another challenge, another opportunity to serve, another chance to disappear. You think about the small apartment in Prague, the cold linoleum floor, the thin curtains that barely kept out the winter chill. You think about the journal hidden under the floorboard, the invisible ink that revealed secrets only you could read. You think about the cafe meetings, the dead drops, the constant vigilance that defined your days. That life is gone now, erased as thoroughly as Pavel Novák himself. But Berlin will bring a new apartment, a new journal, a new set of routines to keep you alive. You lean back in the chair and close your eyes, letting the sounds of the suburbs drift in through the window. The world outside is peaceful, but your mind is still in Prague, still walking cold streets, still checking reflections in shop windows. The habits of months don't vanish with a change of scenery. The paranoia that kept you alive doesn't fade with a plane ticket to Washington. You open your eyes and look at the Berlin materials again. Thomas Weber's life is outlined in precise detail: apartment address, contact protocols, cover story. You can see yourself living that life, blending into Berlin's artistic community, writing articles about music and theater while gathering intelligence on Soviet movements. You can see yourself sitting in smoky cafes, reading newspapers that mean nothing, watching faces for signs of betrayal. It's a life you know how to live, a role you know how to play. But you also see the cost. Another identity to wear, another set of lies to maintain, another piece of yourself to lose. You've been Pavel Novák, Jan Svoboda, and a dozen other names in a dozen other cities. Each one took something from you, left you a little more detached, a little less certain of who you were beneath the masks. You stand and walk to the bedroom, needing to move again, needing to feel the solidity of the floor beneath your feet. You open the closet and look at the clothes hanging there, clean, pressed, ordinary. No gray trousers or brown jackets chosen for their anonymity. No drab coats designed to blend into crowds. These are the clothes of a civilian, someone who doesn't have to think about surveillance or dead drops or coded messages. But they feel wrong, like a costume you haven't learned to wear yet. You return to the living room and sit in the chair by the window. The Berlin materials are still there, patient and inevitable. You pick up the briefing again, flipping through pages you've already memorized. Safe houses in Kreuzberg, contact points in Mitte, extraction routes through the Brandenburg countryside. The machinery of espionage, precise and relentless, waiting for you to step back into its gears. You think about the woman in the blue coat one more time, her steady hands, her coded words, her shopping bag left on the bench by the river. You wonder if she ever sat in a safe house like this, staring at a new assignment, weighing the cost of another performance against the pull of something simpler, something safer. You wonder if she found a way to walk away, to reclaim her real self, to live without fear. The clock chimes 1. The afternoon is creeping in, bringing with it the need to make a choice. You can accept the Berlin assignment and become Thomas Weber, or you can request more time, more rest, a chance to rediscover who you are without a cover identity. Or you can try to walk away entirely, though you know the agency doesn't let its assets disappear so easily. You know too much, carry too many secrets, have too much value to be allowed a normal life. You stand and walk to the kitchen, needing to do something with your hands. You wash the coffee mug and the milk glass, drying them carefully and placing them back in the cupboard. The small act of domesticity feels strange, like a performance you're not sure you believe in. You've spent so long living as someone else that even washing dishes feels like an act of espionage, a way to maintain cover in a world that doesn't require it. You return to the living room and sit in the chair by the window. The suburbs are quieter now, the morning rush giving way to the calm of midday. A delivery truck rumbles past, its driver unaware of the secrets you carry, the lives you've lived. You watch it disappear around the corner, and for a moment, you imagine following it, driving away from this apartment, this city, this life of shadows and lies. But you know you can't. The work is part of you now, woven into your thoughts, your habits, your very sense of self. Even here, in the safety of suburban Washington, you find yourself checking the street for surveillance, listening for footsteps that aren't there, noting the patterns of ordinary life as if they might hold hidden meanings. The paranoia that kept you alive in Prague hasn't faded. It may never fade. You pick up the Berlin materials again, feeling their weight in your hands. Thomas Weber's life is waiting, another role to play, another city to disappear into. You can see yourself in Berlin, walking its divided streets, sitting in its smoky cafes, gathering secrets while the world around you balances on the edge of conflict. It's work you know, work you're good at, work that matters. But you also see the cost. Another identity to lose yourself in, another set of lies to live, another piece of your authentic self to sacrifice. You've been doing this for years, wearing masks, carrying secrets, living in the shadows. Each mission takes something from you, leaves you a little more detached, a little less certain of who you are when the mission ends. You set the materials down and lean back in the chair, closing your eyes. The sounds of the suburbs drift in through the window, birds chirping, a lawnmower in the distance, the soft hum of a neighbor's air conditioner. These are the sounds of peace, of safety, of a life you've almost forgotten how to live. You try to imagine staying here, in this apartment, in this city, without a cover identity, without a mission. But the image is blurry, like a photograph taken in low light. The clock chimes 2. The afternoon is advancing, and the decision looms closer. You open your eyes and look at the Berlin materials again. Thomas Weber's face stares back at you from a forged passport photo, a face that could be anyone, a face designed to be forgotten. You wonder if you'll forget your own face eventually, if the masks you wear will overwrite the person you used to be. You stand and walk to the bedroom, needing to move, needing to feel the solidity of the world around you. You open the window and let the afternoon air drift in, cool and clean, carrying the scent of grass and distant flowers. You breathe deeply, trying to anchor yourself in this moment, this place, this fleeting sense of safety. You return to the living room and sit in the chair by the window. The Berlin materials are still there, waiting for your decision. You pick up the briefing again, flipping through pages you've already memorized. The details are familiar, comforting in their precision. Safe houses, contact protocols, extraction routes. The machinery of espionage, ready to pull you back into its orbit. But you're not ready yet. You need more time to sit with the silence, to feel the weight of the months you've carried, to remember what it feels like to be still. You set the materials down and lean back in the chair, closing your eyes. The sounds of the suburbs wash over you, a gentle tide of ordinary life. You let yourself drift, not quite sleeping, not quite waking, floating in the space between performance and authenticity. The clock chimes 3. The afternoon light is softer now, filtered through clouds that have gathered in the sky. You open your eyes and look out at the street, watching a young couple walk hand in hand, laughing about something you'll never know. Their ease, their openness, their lack of fear, it's a reminder of what you've been fighting for, what you've sacrificed to protect. But it's also a reminder of what you've lost, what you may never fully reclaim. You think about the woman in the blue coat one last time, her steady hands, her coded words, her shopping bag left on the bench by the river. You wonder if she's still out there, still carrying secrets, still living someone else's life. Or maybe she's found a way to stop, to lay down the burden of the work, to exist without masks and fear. You hope she has, even if you're not sure you can. You stand and walk to the kitchen, needing to do something with your hands. You make a sandwich, ham and cheese, simple and ordinary, the kind of food you never ate in Prague. You eat standing at the counter, looking out at the backyard where the afternoon light casts long shadows across the grass. A bird lands on the fence, tilts its head, then flies away. You watch it disappear into the sky, and for a moment, you feel a pang of longing for that kind of freedom. You return to the living room and sit in the chair by the window. The Berlin materials are still there, patient and inevitable. You pick up the photograph of the wall again, tracing its line with your finger. Berlin is another city, another mission, another chance to serve. But it's also another weight to carry, another mask to wear, another piece of yourself to lose. You lean back in the chair and close your eyes, letting the sounds of the suburbs wash over you. The clock chimes 4. The afternoon is fading, giving way to evening. You know you'll have to make a decision soon, but for now, you let yourself be still. Let yourself be quiet. Let yourself exist in the space between identities. The evening arrives slowly, the light softening as the sun dips below the horizon. You open your eyes and look out at the street, now lit by streetlights that create pools of yellow warmth. A family walks past, the parents holding hands, the children running ahead, their laughter echoing in the quiet air. You watch them disappear around the corner, and for a moment, you imagine a life like theirs, simple, open, unafraid. You stand and walk to the bedroom, needing to move, needing to shake the weight of indecision. You open the closet and look at the clothes again, clean and ordinary, a stark contrast to the drab jackets and gray trousers of Prague. You pull out a sweater, soft and warm, and slip it on. The fabric feels foreign against your skin, too comfortable, too honest. You're used to clothes that blend into crowds, that hide you in plain sight. You return to the living room and sit in the chair by the window. The Berlin materials are still there, waiting for your decision. You pick up the briefing again, flipping through pages you know by heart. Safe houses, contact protocols, extraction routes. The machinery of espionage, ready to pull you back into its orbit. But you're not ready yet. You set the materials down and lean back in the chair, closing your eyes. The sounds of the suburbs drift in through the window. A car pulling into a driveway, a dog barking, the distant hum of a television. These are the sounds of peace, of safety, of a life you've almost forgotten how to live. You think about Prague one last time, the cold streets, the gray buildings, the small apartment where Pavel Novák lived his careful, invisible life. You think about the woman in the blue coat, her steady hands, her coded words, her shopping bag left on the bench by the river. You think about Minister Dvorak and his notebooks, the secrets you carried across borders, the intelligence that might have changed the world in ways you'll never know. The clock chimes 5. The evening is settling in, the street growing quieter as families retreat to their homes. You open your eyes and look out at the street, now empty except for a lone cat crossing the sidewalk, its shadow stretching long under the streetlights. You watch it disappear into an alley, and for a moment, you feel a kinship with it, a creature surviving by being invisible. You stand and walk to the kitchen, needing to do something with your hands. You make tea, the ritual familiar even in this safe apartment. The kettle whistles softly, a sound that feels both comforting and out of place. You pour the tea into a clean mug and carry it to the window, standing there as the evening deepens. The suburbs are quiet now, the ordinary rhythm of life slowing to a gentle hum. You sip the tea and watch the street, feeling the weight of months begin to lift, if only slightly. The Berlin materials are still on the coffee table, waiting for your decision. Thomas Weber waits patiently, another identity ready to be born, another performance ready to be given. But for now, you let yourself be still, let yourself be quiet, let yourself exist in the space between missions. The clock chimes 6. The evening is fully here now, the sky dark except for the glow of streetlights and the occasional flicker of a television screen through a neighbor's window. You finish the tea and set the mug in the sink, next to the coffee mug and the milk glass from earlier. The small collection of dishes feels like a record of your day, a quiet testimony to the ordinary acts you've performed in this safe apartment. You return to the living room and sit in the chair by the window. The Berlin materials are still there, patient and inevitable. You pick up the photograph of the wall again, feeling its weight in your hands. Berlin is another city, another mission, another chance to serve. But it's also another weight to carry, another mask to wear, another piece of yourself to lose. You lean back in the chair and close your eyes, letting the sounds of the suburbs wash over you. The clock ticks steadily on the mantel, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. The street outside is quiet, peaceful, the ordinary rhythm of suburban life continuing without your intervention. You think about the work one last time, the invisible contributions you've made, the secrets you've carried, the lives you've lived to keep this world safe. You think about the woman in the blue coat, about Minister Dvorak, about the cat that crossed the street in Prague. You think about Pavel Novák and Jan Svoboda, the identities you've worn, the performances you've given, the pieces of yourself you've left behind. The clock chimes 7. The night is here now, the suburbs settling into silence. You open your eyes and look out at the street, empty except for the pools of light cast by streetlights. You stand and walk to the bedroom, carrying the weight of indecision, the weight of months, the weight of a life lived in shadows. You sit on the edge of the bed and look at your hands, still steady despite everything. You think about the Berlin assignment, about Thomas Weber, about the city waiting to swallow you into another performance. You think about the possibility of saying no, of walking away, of trying to find a life that doesn't require constant vigilance. But you know the work isn't done. The world isn't safe, not yet, not completely. There are still secrets to gather, still truths to uncover, still invisible contributions to make. And you're good at this work, better than most, even if it's taken more from you than you can measure. You stand and walk to the living room one last time. The Berlin materials are still on the coffee table, waiting for your decision. You pick up the briefing and flip through it again. The details familiar, the weight familiar, the cost familiar. You set it down and walk to the window, looking out at the street one last time. The night is quiet, peaceful, the suburbs asleep under a blanket of stars. You think about the small apartment in Prague, the cold streets, the gray buildings, the journal hidden under the floorboard. You think about the woman in the blue coat, her steady hands, her coded words, her shopping bag left on the bench by the river. You return to the bedroom and sit on the edge of the bed. You take a small piece of paper from your pocket, a blank sheet, nothing important, just a habit from months of carrying secrets. You light a match and hold it to the paper, watching it curl and blacken, the smoke rising in thin wisps toward the ceiling. You let it burn until there's nothing left but ash, then scatter the ash into the trash. You lie back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the safe apartment. No footsteps in the hallway. No coughing through thin walls. No gurgling pipes heavy with secrets. Just silence, peaceful and safe, wrapping around you like a blanket. You close your eyes and wait for nothing, letting the silence carry you toward sleep. The work continues somewhere, carried by someone, but for now, it's not your burden to bear. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking. The clock ticks steadily on the mantel, measuring time in comfort rather than survival. The suburbs outside continue their peaceful rhythm, carrying people toward another day of ordinary safety, ordinary freedom, ordinary happiness. And you lie on your back, waiting for nothing, letting the silence wash over you like a gentle tide. You are still, finally still, in the space between identities, between missions, between the person you were and the person you might become. The work is done, for now. The world is safe, for now. And you are still, finally still, in the quiet space between sleeping and waking.